Crown of the North, the City of Splendor, my home and my city. Today we shall learn about the history of Waterdeep.
Few know the true history of this great city. It starts over 1,000 years ago, when the North was truly what Southerners call the Savage North. In those days, most of these parts were covered with vast, tall forests of ancient green and inhabited by dwarves, goblin-kind, and elves. A few humans lived along the Sword Coast, fishing, hunting. They gathered in the spring and fall to trade furs with merchants sailing from the south. These vessels came primarily to cut and take huge trees for shipbuilding, trees being no longer available in such large sizes down farther south. Most of the trade routes were at places where there was a natural deep-water harbor, an arm of an isolated coastal crag, or a rocky island beyond it. Over the years, the forest was cut back from the shore, and tribes began to stay there, farming the cleared land. The wiser among them claimed some of the timber, so to trade for more weapons and tools. These claims angered others, who found the squatters wealthy from frequent trade, and, like many before them, decided to slaughter them and steal their riches. Especially brutal were the tribes that were led by Nimawar, a chieftain who ordered his clan to seize everything built around the bay. They settled there themselves and erected a log palisade for protection. Several pirates and other barbarians tried to attack Nimawar's hold, but he beat them back without a thought, and the fledgling town prospered. At this point, people started to call the place the town of Waterdeep. At the time, in the north, orc tribes had outgrown their territory and they spread out over the land. South and down from the mountains they came, hurling endless numbers against all who stood in their way. Here and there, elven enclaves held out, but the push southward displaced many other northern folk. Most notably were the Everlasting Ones, who came down into the cleared lands northeast of Nimawar's hold, what we today call the Troll Moors. Nimawar died of old age when this all happened, and younger warlords led the men of Waterdeep in battles against the trolls. There were many bloody struggles between men and trolls until the magic of the northern youth named Agaron turned the tide. Agaron rose in skill and power with the passage of the years, and soon became a great mage. I think he must have found a supply of youth potions, for he lived on, still a man in his prime, for decades. It was also now that we took the first step towards building Castle Waterdeep. The warlords set up a keep above on the slopes of Mount Waterdeep to protect the farmers from troll attacks. Many folk who had come to Waterdeep for protection from the trolls stayed and expanded the walls with new farms. By this time, the city had officially been renamed to the Free City of Waterdeep and was ruled by a handful of warlords. Much like Sembia, the power eventually shifted from the warlords to the merchants. But unlike Sembia, these merchants and guildmasters were unable to agree on how to rule the city. Groups of bodyguards appeared openly armed on the streets while walking with their masters. Murder and foul play continued until, at last, they agreed that all masters should rule Waterdeep together in a council. Lesser nobles and many townsfolk protested. They wanted the lords to rule by right and by the people's consent. The guildmasters brushed this away and said that the lords had not been seen since Agaron's death. They claimed that any previous lords must have been golems controlled by the mage to conceal his dictatorship. But, I'll tell you in truth, the lords were real men and women. The guildmasters had been hunting down any lords they could find and eliminating them in preparation for a coup. The only two lords to survive this purge were Faerûn, a woodworker, and Shalom, an apprentice wizard. These two kept very quiet and waited. Once the guildmasters thought all the living lords of the city had been eliminated, they took a firmer rule over Waterdeep. They ruled for only 6 years, but then their squabbling led to bloodshed. A few murders quickly erupted into a vicious series of street fights and midnight attacks. We call this time the Guild Wars, and it left all but 2 guildmasters dead. It also took out most of our city's best minds, wasted the city's gold.
With the end of the Guild War, we will wrap out part 1 of the history of Waterdeep. We're looking for more people to help us make Faerun history better. If you feel that you can help us out in any way, please reach out to us through Twitter or Facebook. I'll put the links in the doobly-doo.